Hey everybody, it's Jo and welcome back to Trauma Talk and my favorite time of the year, which is really just any time of year where it's justifiable to put up a Christmas tree with lights and leave it on all day because it makes me super happy. Now today we are unfortunately stuck with a rant from yours truly because I was on Facebook today and saw a post that said, "Is anxiety a sin?" in parentheses, I'm talking about the disorder. And I didn't think I was gonna have to comment on this because I was like, oh, we're in 2018, obviously this is not something I'm gonna have to put in my 2 cents on, until I started noticing everyone's comments. That's what we're gonna dive into today. Also, before we go any further, let me just say that if you have triggers revolving around the church or Christianity, just use caution watching this video. I'm definitely gonna use a lot of church language and read comments of people who are still very deep inside the church. So if you have issues with that, like I said, just use your own judgment moving forward. I don't think I need to tell you that my view on this is that obviously no, having an anxiety disorder is not a sin. Having post-traumatic stress disorder is not a sin. Having depression, which is a mental disorder, illness, is not a sin. So many of the comments on this comment string were, yes, it's a sin, but God can forgive you, or yes, it's a sin and I used to deal with this before I repented and I asked forgiveness. And a lot of them brought up verses that dealt with worry. I am certain that if you were raised in a church that was not great with mental issues, you had these verses thrown in your face. Like, say, the ever-popular Philippians 4:6, which tells people not to worry, but in everything to turn things over to God. But here's the thing. Worry and anxiety as an illness, as a disorder, are not the same things. And so when people get verses thrown in their faces when they're dealing with mental illness and mental disorders, it is not only not helpful, it is honestly hurtful. Another one of the comments I read, it's from Satan, so you need to ask forgiveness. Only then do we get to the comment that I felt like I really needed to talk about. The rest of it, I definitely felt a lot of passion about, but when I got to this comment, that's when I actually chimed into this whole string of comments. Ross, I won't say his last name, writes, "No, it's not, but choosing not to get treatment once you recognize the problem would be sinful." My first question to this person was, what do you mean by treatment? And why would not seeking it be sinful? Because first of all, everyone's definition of treatment varies. Everyone's length of treatment varies. For some people in the church, getting treatment might be talking to a pastor. It might be talking to a Christian counselor who doesn't have any actual training and is just a well-meaning Christian person who wants to listen. To some people, it might be seeing a licensed therapist. To some people, it might be going to a doctor. To some people, it might be using healing crystals, which is super not okay to anyone in the Christian church. To some people, it might be taking medication. To some people, it might be taking herbal supplements. To some people, it might be changing your exercise regimen. To some people, it might be going outside. Like, it's just, it completely varies depending on who you're talking to. And depending on who you're talking to, a lot of people will tell you that you're getting your anxiety treated wrong, depending on what you're doing. And so I think that saying that if you don't get treated based on some standard that you are doing something sinful, that is almost as dangerous as saying that having anxiety in itself is sinful. If you watch any of my other videos, you'll know that I'm someone who deeply believes that once we have experienced negative things, once we have gone through trauma, or once we are dealing with mental illness, that it is so important to seek help. Whatever help means to us, whatever is helpful to us. I believe that is so important for survival, for thriving, for everything. And so I would never in a million years discourage anyone from getting treatment. But the idea that not getting treatment somehow separates you from God, somehow makes you a worse person, somehow in some way sends you closer to hell, I think is such a damaging idea to spread. So I wanted to take a moment to make this video because there are a lot of people who believe in 2018 that first of all, mental illness is sinful, and second of all, having a mental illness and not getting it treated a particular way is sinful. Both of those ideas are completely wrong, and there isn't a biblical backing for it that I have ever found. I grew up in that train of thought. I grew up under those rules and regulations. I never believed that I was depressed or anxious. I just believed that I wasn't Christian enough. I just believed that I didn't have enough faith. And so I didn't have a basis for ever getting better. I just thought I was tired. I just thought I was not turning things over to God. I didn't read the Bible enough. I didn't fill in the blank. And none of that was ever true. And I believe that God loved me exactly the way I was during all of that. I don't want to sit here for a moment and pretend like I have answers to everything, because I honestly don't. But I have lived a little bit of life, I have experienced quite a few things, and I can tell you that if you are dealing with these things, you are not living in sin just because you are struggling, just because your mind is not working the way maybe a normally chemically balanced brain does, or because the way it worked before trauma is not the way it works after trauma. We live in a world that is messed up, that is broken, and I believe that there is a God that loves us and is there to help. And I don't believe that the people there that are condemning us and telling us that we're sinful by struggling are really doing much good or helping. Nor, if you are someone who believes in the Bible, that you will find any backing for finding that mental illness is sinful. This is something I'm honestly really passionate about, because I know what it feels like to walk around in the world dealing with anxiety and depression and PTSD, and knowing that my head does not work the same as the people I'm interacting with, knowing that something feels broken or amiss, and knowing that I have no idea how to fix it. I don't feel like I have any control over it. I feel like I'm supposed to have control over it, and that's a disordered thought in itself, which I've done other videos on. But then having that compounded by people telling me that I am sinful for existing that way, that I am sinful for barely making it, that I am sinful for having a brain that's chemistry is not working correctly, was not only massively unhelpful, but like I said, is incredibly harmful and also inaccurate. So thank you for listening to this, guys. And if you have heard these things told to you before, I hope that maybe hearing the reverse will be helpful, and hearing that you were never sinning by dealing with mental illness can be a breath of fresh air for even a second. I'm Jo Beckwith, this is Trauma Talk. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure that you hit subscribe before you leave. Every Sunday and every Thursday I release new videos on life in the aftermath of trauma. I would really love to see you here. I would love to hear from you in the comment section if this is something you have ever dealt with, if people have told you that you were sinful or fallen or bad or wrong for even having a diagnosis, for dealing with some kind of mental illness. I look forward to talking to you in the comment section. Please take care of yourselves until I see you next time. Bye, guys.